Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video, another stream, continuing on the F-22 Raptor by Italeri 1/48 scale. Yes, not really doing so much building today, but we got painting to do. This is now part 4, now that I remember which part I'm on. Let's take a look at this guy here. So, last time we got some spray paint color done around the trim on here, and on the bottom I've got my putty that I filled in on the lines here and the gaps. It's not 100% perfect, but it's much better than it was, and so I've hit this with the light gray also. As you can see, I've masked off my engines on the bottom here just to make sure they stay the gunmetal color that they're supposed to be. So with that being done, we still have more painting to do. So as you guys already know, in the last time we have spray painted the light gray around the trim on here, and so I'm just getting started on doing the main color, and that's going to be this one. So I've decided I'm going to use the AS7 neutral gray as the main color on this, and then for the camouflage color I'm going to use the TS32 haze gray, and you'll see how they're going to contrast. The camera doesn't really do it too much justice with the paint lids, but you'll see when we get it all done, you'll see the contrast. So I just literally spray painted these, like, I don't know, 2 minutes ago, so these have to dry. And in the meantime, so I'll just put these over here. As promised, I'm going to show you the full process, even masking the tail fins. As tedious as that might seem, and maybe boring, I'm still going to show you guys, as promised. There's just a tiny little trim around this tail fin. I guess technically this is called the elevator, and yeah, so we want to leave that the base color, or not the base color, we want to leave it as the super light gray color, which this model is pretty much molded in the same color. It's very close. It's hard to tell that I've actually spray painted this when I compare it to the color that the thing is molded in. And well, that's fine. We don't doesn't really matter, because this thing is going to be a totally different color when we're all done. And that's another thing that kind of makes the Raptor unique as far as American aircraft go. They usually have their camouflage patterns in like 2 colors. But the Raptor has 3. And I guess because the Raptor relies so much on stealth, they don't have to rely so much on camouflage. But that's alright. I have my music turned down a little too low. I can't even hear it myself. Turn it up a little bit there. So, by the time I got this masked off, the other pieces should be dry, and I can show you what they're going to look like. Once this is done. No. edge to go on this one. There we go. So that elevator is ready for paint. Now we'll do the tail fin. I did actually do an experiment last night on the colors and what I wanted to use for this. I thought the haze gray might be a good color to use as the base, and so I spray painted the other elevator there in the haze gray, and as it turns out, the haze gray is much darker and has a bit more of a bluish tint to it than what the lid led me to believe, which is why I decided to change it and going to go with that haze gray as the darker camouflage color. So that's why changing it up, doing it a little bit different, using my fingernail to kind of scribe the panel lines on this thing so that I've got a guide where I need to cut, because we need to cut out this little section here. And that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay. Pull that out. There we go. Okay. So I have to do that on both sides. And what I can actually do, utilize my leftover here. This little strip up top here. Come on, here you go. There we go. Okay. So that's one side done. Now we've got to do this side. using my long ass fingernail, spreading that line. So I have a nice guide for my knife. All right. Here we go. Let's strip across the top here. And that'll do it for that. So I just need to do an extra little piece across there to wrap it around. So I don't get overspray on the front of this. And maybe one more little piece here. There we go. All right, ready for painting. Grab a couple of alligator clips. So that'll do it. Okay, let's bring this back and grab my ink. There's that one done. And that one done. So I'll just put these back on the table and let these dry. And we'll take a look at these. Let's see how these come out. And so that's that. That's the elevator. So you can see the tiny little light gray strip all the way around the edge on that. And that's all there is to that on those. Well, for now anyway. Now we have these guys. The end result on the tail fins actually looks pretty cool. And then of course you still have, you're going to have a dark gray spot in the middle of this triangle here on these. And the panel line accent, panel line color on there, it's going to look pretty good. So yeah, So there's that. That's done. At least those two, anyway. So I'll put these aside for now. And what else do we have to do on this? Well, I need to mask off a whole bunch all the way around here, and then spray that with the base color. I don't think I'm going to bother doing that on the video. I don't see, I don't know, you guys really want to watch me mask things off? I don't think that's going to be a huge crowd wanting to watch me put masking tape on a model. So I'm not going to do that I'm not going to do that live, okay? That's I don't see that as a necessary thing. One thing I will say, now at the same time that I don't recommend this kit by Italeri, I will say they have some nice decals for the missiles. Let's see if I can show you here. If I do this and I do this, will you focus on the missile, or are you going to focus on the cardboard? What you going to do for me? Do that, will you do? There we go. You can see the decals on the missile. That's all one decal on there. So it's pretty nicely detailed as far as the decals go on the missiles, right? So I'll give them a thumbs up for that. But honestly, that's all I can give them a thumbs up for. I would have liked to see the engines, these flaps actually molded in separate pieces to be glued in, because their way of sculpting these is very, the edges are rounded. They're not sharp and crisp like they really should be. So I got to give them a thumbs down for that. I would have liked that. I would have liked to see this particular opening here is completely irrelevant and unnecessary. Nobody's going to want to have that displayed, a hatch open there, and have some mystery part underneath there. Nobody knows what that is. The gun, the machine gun pod, is, you can display it open, but there's such a shit detail on the gun itself. There's no point. You don't want to display it. It looks awful. So yeah, not to mention the fit of the fins and everything. It's just, yeah. What I might actually do in the future is buy Academy's version of this and see how that one does, because I have the Hasegawa version of the F-22, and it's a nice kit. Although, like I mentioned in my last video, it's a bit complicated. It's a bit complex. You've got to put all this bracing inside the two fuselage halves and make sure all these little pins line up as you put the top down. And so it's a little bit complex in the assembly of it. And so that, if you're not confident doing those kinds of things, then the Hasegawa kit might not be for you. But in the end, it does come together really nice, and the detail is good. And so the Hasegawa kit, I give a thumbs up. The Academy kit, I don't know. I've watched a video of the Academy kit online. It looks like their molds are similar to Hasegawa, but not quite as complex. And the guy in the video, he had some fitment issues here on the intakes on the Academy kit, where I didn't really have any fitment problems on the Hasegawa. Everything seemed to fit together pretty good. Again, it's a bit complex in the Hasegawa's assembly, but sometimes you just gotta take the good with the bad, right? So this is looking pretty good, and it feels pretty dry, so we should be able to get away with unmasking these now. There's the tail fin. This would be the left side. And there's my other elevator. So, get a feel of how this is coming together and how it's going to look. Now, remember last time I was talking about how there's a bit of an imperfection in the mold, and you can see like a little half circle. Painting this over with this color has completely hidden that, and so I can't see it at all anymore. So that's a nice little bonus. So it's not going to make a difference whether I put it on this side like this, like that, or if I just flip it over and put it here. They fit the same either way. And so that's that. We're getting an airplane that's going to be looking like an airplane. Yeah. So this side, now this fin, this tail fin, I wound up having to trim this piece, this tab. It was actually too long to fit into the slot. And I got it to fit, and it fits good now. The other side, however, the other side fit perfectly all along, and it actually doesn't fit flush. I got a big gap there, and when I get it to fit with closing the gap on the inside here, I create a big gap on the outside here. And if I lay the fin down and close the gap on the outside, I got a big gap on the inside. So I have to decide which one I'm going to do. Am I going to just kind of put it in the middle and leave it? Because either way I look at it, I'm going to have a big gap. I can try and just put it in the middle. If I put it up too far, then the fins, the tail fins don't match on their angles. And I guess I could kind of put them up like that and glue them and hold them until the glue's set and get the same angle, right? But that is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So yeah, so there we go. Looking at this gray and how much darker it is, not really expecting to have such a dark plane, but that's okay. Oops. So there we go. So those are the tail fins and the elevators painted. I need to get the gear for the missiles, because the missiles don't just sit in there. They've got little, I don't even know what to call them, some kind of little bracket things that they hold on to, and they are in here somewhere. That's these guys here. These two guys, these got to be painted white. Oops. These got to be painted white. this is another one of those things. I'm not installing these today, but I'm getting prepared for installation. It's a little bit unfortunate that they've molded these in the way that they have. Because as you can see, the way they have this, so this side goes on the missile. It's got a little thing sticking out for you to line it up, and then the missile goes onto it like this. Okay, sits like that. Okay, and that's how it's going to sit. When you take a look at these two arms that stick out, it's just a big triangular piece of plastic, and I think it's probably supposed to be two individual arms, but they've just molded it as one big triangular piece at each end, and it doesn't look very, I don't know, realistic, I guess. You can hold on to that little peg. Sure you will. There you go. There we go. Okay, let's get the white out. White out. I think I will do 2 coats because, as you can see, it didn't really change the color very much at all. So I am going to do 2 coats on these. So give those a minute to dry. Now, as promised, I wanted to show you guys my process on doing the camouflage. So what I did is I took the instructions. They have this picture in the instructions. I believe it's at the back page, or paint, where all the decals go and everything like that. So basically all I did is I just threw this on a photocopier and blew it up something like 180% or something like that, just so I could have like a full screen image of this thing. Now, the drawback to this is this, even though they've included this in the manual, this is not accurate to the actual plane. Case in point, if I show you the back end here, they show you the line going around the tail fin here, like this, and it continues, and it goes like this up in here, okay? Now when you look at the actual plane, there is no scribe line going along here, and this is not supposed to be light gray going up in here, but they show it here, right along here, like you're supposed to just make up your own tiny little line. And that's not accurate to the actual plane. The actual plane, this is light gray up to here, and that's where it stops. And that's why I've masked it here and ended the light gray on each side here, okay, and down here. Because on the real plane, that light gray does not go all the way to the edge. So that's just one of the things that's not quite accurate. And I believe on the real plane, your light gray comes along here, come around to the fin, comes to here, continues along here, and then goes up like this and stops dead. Of course, you can't even see it because of the angle of their drawing, so you don't know for sure exactly how that's going to go. One thing just noticing on here, you notice in the drawing you've got your little diamonds right here and here on each side, right? So on the actual kit though, we've got our diamond here. Okay, now the camera was not picking it up, so I'm going to do you guys a favor here. Just so you guys can see. I'll wash this off later. Okay, so there's one diamond. Except on here they're rectangles. On the actual kit, they're rectangles. And what they've done is they've included decals here and here, and they are not rectangles, they are squares. And they will not, they will completely cover those squares, completely. So that's not going to be very good at all. So yeah, that's just kind of the way it is with this kit. It's not a whole lot of accuracy in the real application of things. So, but in wanting to keep with accurate in the way things look, we have this, and normally what I would do is take a sheet of paper like this and I would trace out my wing. If I don't have the ability to actually get a photocopy that's the right size, I'd do something like this. To give myself an accurate dimensions of the tail fin. Take a look at how this is. See, they even show this is actually the fin here that stops here, right? And here. So, with that being said, we're going to do a pattern somewhere like this. Something like that. And then I'm going to cut this out. Now maybe I drew it a little too big, so I'm just going to come in and make it a little smaller. And there we go. And now I can put this underneath, kind of line it up, and I'll just spray. So let's do that. Okay. So I'm going to grab my, this is the haze spray. Okay, that kind of looks like dick and balls. Let's get my other camera going here for you. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it over here, and we're going to try and line it up as best as I can. If I hold it up to the light here, I can see my drawing, my nice penmanship through the paper. And that's where we're going to leave it. And then we're going to take this, I'm just going to hold it down. There's good enough. And that's it. Now, there we have our color, which you can see it because it's shiny and wet. And there we go. So there we have our camouflage color. Now, am I happy with that? I have to say, no, not really. The contrast of the two grays, although that looks okay here, in real life, this is just a bit too blue. And that might be okay for the F-15, but I'm not really liking that contrast on these two. I think I want more of a gray than I want blue. So, we're going to put this one aside. We're not going to do that color. So while I just let this dry for a minute, I am going to do another coat of the white on my little pieces here. Autoplay on my music just repeated the same song. So like that. Okay, so I want to find a different gray. So let's see what I got. I'm going to go with gunship gray. I think the gunship gray will be a better contrast to the actual gray. And we will see. So I'll show you again. Change my camera. Okay. So this time all I got to do is kind of line this up to where it was. Now that's a much better contrast. You can even see it on this camera. Much better. Much, much better. Definitely better. So, that's the color we're going with. Gunship gray and neutral gray. This is actually gunship gray 2. So I think that is a much better choice for the gray color. So while that one dries, let's grab the other side. And we'll do the exact same thing. I'm just going to put this over here. And you can go over here. You can go here. So let's trace out this one. Okay, make sure I don't on the part. That's good enough. Let's take a look how this one is supposed to look. This one looks like a little bit more blotchy pattern. So, you just kind of got a piece that kind of goes up there, and a piece that comes here like this, and it's kind of goes in but just straight down, and it comes like this, and like that. Okay, so that's good enough. I'm going to cut this out. Now, if you're trying to actually duplicate how these things look on the actual plane, I've got good news and I've got bad news. Actually, I don't have any bad news. The good news is you can have 4 different planes in a squadron and they all have the same camouflage, but their patterns are all a little bit different. Good news isn't bad news, that's right. The patterns are all different. I've seen pictures of like 5 planes all lined up in a row, and they all have the same camouflage on them, but the patterns on the tail fins and stuff like that, they're all just a little different. So I like that, so that if I don't get it exactly as the picture, that's all right. So once again, I'm trying to be mindful and change my camera view. I want to keep this lined up exactly the same. I just moved it, but that's okay. Alright, grab my dark gray, and I just turned it up. Now, the one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to tape it to the part, because if I tape it, I'm not going to get that little bit of overspray. That's the whole purpose of it. The whole purpose of it is to get just a tiny little bit of overspray around it. And so I don't really want the paper to be touching, because I don't want a hard line. And you might be able to see right here, the paper actually was touching it, and so I got a bit of a hard line. But then the paper kind of lifted up a little bit here, and I've got that nice softer edge. And almost a little too soft here is it almost oversprayed into the light gray, right? Very close, but it's all right. We survived that. It's not going to be an issue there, right? But that's basically the whole thing, and that you're going to see. That's how I do this. The rest of this plane is like that. It's cutting out these pieces and doing that, making these little patterns. So sometimes it might benefit you if you use like a really light cardboard, because then it kind of sticks to the pattern itself. It doesn't flop so much like paper. But when you get to certain areas, in different contours, like when you get up into these different moldings, the cardboard's going to touch here and will leave a big gap as it goes down, and that's where the paper can be a little bit better, because the paper can mold a little bit easier along the different bends and contours of the fuselage, and that's where that kind of comes in a little bit better like that. Sometimes the paper, I've always used paper. Cardboard almost never use, just simply for that, unless it's totally flat. Another thing you could do is, if you're having problems getting it to just stay raised up just like a millimeter or two, you could always just put a little piece of tape. You could, like, say here, you could go on the other side of this and just put a little piece of tape, ball it up a little bit and just stick it there. And then when the paper goes down, the paper will be raised up just that little bit, right? That's always an option, right? I suppose another thing you could do is grab this stuff and you could run that around there and put your paper over top of it. That could be another option too. I might play around with that option, I don't know. Okay, so these are done. So I want to put panel line on these. Just so that these have a little more detail on them. Just because there seems to be a kind of a lack of detail on this thing when it comes to these little pieces. So I want to have them kind of pop out a little bit better, for lack of a better term. There we go, there's one done. Can you able to see that on the camera? Okay. Okay, that's good enough on those. I think I can put on this was on there. So this faces forward, like so. Which means it's going to go like this on this side. Enough. It's straight. There we go. There's one. Straight. There we go. Those are done. So missiles are ready to install. Well, once the glue dries anyway. I feel like I'm a little washed out here. Let's do this. those are done. Those are ready to go. I really should put them in a safe spot so that I'm not bumping them or anything, but that's okay. So we do have the tail fins. Now the tail fins, I already know they have that kind of a pattern on the inside, but what about on the other side? And what about the underneath of these? Let's take a look at the instructions. Do they actually show me? They show me the inside and outside of this, but they don't show me the underside. Well, the underside of the elevators, there's nothing on them. There's no camouflage on the underneath at all. Okay, right here too. Nothing on the underneath. It's only on the top. And what they show here on the inside is just that, and then the outside is literally just a triangle, a messy triangle. So we're just going to make it up ourselves. So now what's unique about this is on the F-22, it's the exact same pattern on the inside and on each fin. So what I can literally do is paint one, flip the paper over, paint another one. But I do need two patterns because the inside and the outside are different. Now I actually want to do this so that I have an idea of where I feel like my felt pen is dying. This goes like this. As you can see, it doesn't go past the actual rudder. So it's only in this little area. Okay, which means it's only like this, and my pen is totally dying. And now it's suddenly coming back to life. Okay. So there we go. There's the pattern that we're going to use for the inside. This is actually the outside, but for the inside. Okay. So now let's just flip this over and do this, just so it's easier to utilize the page. My pen is dead. Let's grab another pen. Does this work? Yep. Triangle, just so we can get an idea of how that's going to look. Okay, so how did the outside go? On the outside it's the same thing, it doesn't go onto the rudder part, but the outside one is basically just looking like this. Kind of just like that. So there we go. There's our two patterns for the inside and the outside of the tail fins. One. It's kind of nice that you have the freedom to make it as detailed or just blobbish as you want. And so that's what we got. There we go. So let's start with, let's do the inside first. Now, what's going to make this a little bit challenging is I have to do it this way, okay, in order to get this like that. I can hold it like this. What I kind of want to do is, if I can darken this up, it helps me see through the page. It would be nice if my felt worked. It is kind of old, so I can't really complain too much, other than it really should work. Anyway, so the challenge is going to be the paper, because it's flat, the paper is going to want to go and stick right away. So I'm going to try using my own little trick. I'm going to take a little bit of masking tape. Okay, and rip this in half so I can use more. So what I'm going to do is just kind of roll it up. This. Okay, and now I can put it here, and now that'll help keep that away from the edge. And if you put it too close, what can happen is the overspray might actually go against that, and then that kind of ruins the whole effect, because now you've got a hard edge of that on here, right? So now when I flip this over, it's mechanically being held apart from it. So let's get this lined up. Switch cameras again. Lay it down and try not to move it. Make sure I am lined up here. Okay. Okay. Now we wanted our dark gray. Now, because I held it a little bit further away, we've got a little bit of overspray. Let's see here. Okay, we've got a little bit of overspray that's went a little too far on this edge. Okay, just a little tiny bit. But I can always just go back and touch that up. I can mask this off and go with the super light gray and get rid of any overspray. The rest of it looks pretty good. Maybe I put it a little too high up on it. Like maybe this could have benefited from being just a little bit lower. Possibly. So I could try, what I could do is wait a few minutes, let this dry, put it down, put the paper down on there, but actually have it physically a little bit lower. And that's what that will do, is it will spray and it will make this pattern just a little bit lower down. Now, let's just take a look at it on the plane itself. And how does it look? I think in the grand scheme of things, it probably looks fine. Okay? It probably looks okay. So I think I'm just going to leave it. Just going to leave it like that. Now another thing I want to do, I don't want to do the other wing right away because I also have to let the paint dry on here because this fin has to go on this side where I just painted, and that's tacky and I don't want to get anything on here. I also have to get rid of these and maybe put them on this side now to make sure now I've got them on this side. Okay. Of course, now I have to try and line this up on this side, and I've got no markings to go by. So I'm kind of doing this by hopefully trying to find a corner through the light. This, and now we have it like this, down, just like that. Okay. A little bit better this time around. I got no overspray there. I got nice distance here, so that looks much better. So there we go. There's the two insides of our tail fins, just like that. So now the next thing to do is going to be the outside. Now the outside is going to be a little bit of a challenge because of this lip on there. See that lip there? That is going to be a challenge because the paper is just going to be at a crazy angle, and it might want to touch here and then have tons of overspray here. So to help eliminate that, how technical are you? You're pretty good. Okay. So to try and help with that, I'm going to take our tape off here now. So we know this is the top, so we want to have a piece of tape up here because we don't want it touching. Okay. Now as for down here, we line this up. There we go. And as you can see, that the paper is not really cooperating, right? So I'm actually going to put a crease in here. Kind of fold that down a little bit. Okay. But did I do it too much? I think I'm going to be able to get away with it. Because, I'll show you over here. Get her lined up again. Okay, I'm actually going to turn it around. Make sure I have it lined up. We're actually going to do something here to make my life a little easier. Because we don't need all that extra paper, so line it up. Okay, Now I don't want that touching, so I'm going to lift that up a bit. Now I got to pay attention. I don't want to be spraying at an angle like this and get it under there. So I'm going to spray more on an angle a little bit like this, because it's further away from the piece than what I normally like. I want to get some overspray on my hands, but let's see how that looks. Not bad. I got a little bit thick on this edge, but that's okay. We're just going to leave it like that so it doesn't run. Now I'll change my camera. So we did okay. A little bit of overspray here, but that's fixable. That's really easy to fix. I'm going to let our paper dry before trying to do the other wing. But once we got that done, I'm going to call it a day. And yeah, so this seam wing, I've got to clean up that overspray, and also on this side right there, that little bit. Other than that, it looks pretty good. I didn't get any overspray down here, which is good, but there's a big fade right there, and that's, well, it's kind of expected, right? Just because of the nature of the paper and the way the thing sits. But other than that, it looks pretty good. It's not bad. So I can take my little tube off this side and put it on this side. I would like to draw this line a little bit darker so that I can see where my corners are supposed to be. Okay, that's dry to the touch, so that'll be safe to put this one on. And of course, nice and easy to line it up here. So now, of course, we have this creased the wrong way, right? So we need to crease it this way. Don't want to rip the paper in the corners, you just want it bent a little bit. Okay, so we're pretty good like that. Back to the other camera. And of course, I have it backwards, so flip it around. And there we go. Make sure it's good. Oh, forgetting my rule here. I gotta have it this way. Right? Okay. So there we are. I'd like to have that sitting better, but there's not much I can do. Okay, this one I got a little more overspray, but it's not too bad. Not too bad. Okay, so again, a little bit overspray here, but not on the back. It looks comparable to this side, it's almost identical as far as getting the same kind of spacing back here as along here. It's very close. It's not quite the same. I may have accidentally tilted this one. That's what it kind of looks like, maybe, or maybe I just had it a little bit more forward. I think I had it exactly the same. It was very close. Anyway, This one I actually got a little bit of overspray in the panel line right there, but it's okay. Again, still very fixable easily. I'll let that dry, and then I'll just mask this, and then I'll go with the light gray and just go yeah, something like that. At least it wasn't the wet one. Anyway, so that's it. So with that, I'm going to call it a day. That'll be it for today, guys. I gotta get a new Sharpie, really. And yeah, so I want to thank you guys for watching. Thanks for coming out. That's going to be it for part 4. Next time, we're going to be doing more of this stuff, but on the main fuselage. I'll get this masked up, and I'll get the base color put down, and yeah, and then we'll be doing the camouflage on this part. Yeah. Okay. So thanks again, guys, for coming out. Thanks for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, head on over to my Twitch channel, and you can talk to me live, just like Urella did. You're welcome, Urella. Thanks for watching. Thanks for talking. And if you want to see still pictures of all the models that I built, you can head on over to my Instagram. And if you want to actually send me a message, you can head on over to my Twitter account, and you can DM me on my Twitter. Yeah, so that's going to be it for today, guys. So once again, thanks for coming out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all you guys who follow me and subscribe. You guys are really great. Thanks again. So that's going to be it for part 4. We'll get to more painting and final assembly, I hope, on part 5. And so yeah, so until then, we'll see you all on the next one.